Here's a hard truth. If you're not networking, you are missing out on job offers. When you apply for a job online, the data says that you only have about a 2% chance of landing an interview. But 40 to 80% of jobs, they're filled through referrals and networking in today's market. The problem is, networking feels overwhelming. It's time-consuming, it's uncomfortable, it's really easy to lose track of who you talked to, what you said, and when you should be following up. In this video, I'm gonna show you how to use n8n and ChatGPT to automate your entire networking system, from tracking every single connection, to brainstorming personalized value you can add, to sending automatic follow-up reminders. This workflow is based on the exact networking system that I personally use to go from healthcare to landing interviews and offers at Google, Microsoft, and Twitter. It also uses the exact same philosophies that we leverage with our clients to drive offers in about 15.5 weeks with a $44,000 average raise in this market. I'm gonna give you the full template so you can plug it right into your job search, automate your outreach, and finally start generating referrals that turn into dream job offers. Let's dive in. So first, I want to give you some context on why focusing the majority of your efforts on networking is worth it. And I'll give you some industry data. I'll also give you some examples from my own personal experience. So let's start with what the data says around online applications. When you go to LinkedIn or Indeed or a job board to apply, you've probably noticed that there are hundreds of other people who have applied for that role. And that is what the data tells us. On average, a role is seeing about 250 applications. But then we think about how many of these people get in the door for an interview. And it's typically about 5 to 7 folks that the hiring team is bringing in for those initial rounds and vetting in terms of who's going to get to the later rounds and win the offer. And then only one candidate ends up winning the offer, right? So if we do the math here, you only have about a 2% chance of getting in the door just for an interview if you're applying for a job online. So that naturally then leads to the question of, well, where do most of the hires come from? And online applications are where most people are spending their time, right? The data shows that roughly 75% of people use online applications as their primary method to job search. But the data also shows that 40 to 80% of hires come via referral. So once we know this information, we can adjust our expectations. We can also adjust where we invest our time and energy, because as is true with anything in life, we want to invest our time and energy proportionally into the channels where we have the highest chance of success. So as a result, what we recommend for you and for all of our clients, and what I ended up doing, which I'll talk about in a second, is focusing 80% of your energy on landing referrals. For sure, you can still apply for jobs. That's still an important part of the process, but that should be a minimal investment of your time and energy. And you should focus much more heavily on networking, building relationships, and converting those into referrals. So that's exactly what I did in my own personal job search. You can see a picture of me here walking at college graduation, having no idea what the heck I was going to do next. I got a job in healthcare, which I hated. It was in North Carolina, and I wanted to move to New York City. I wanted to work at a big tech company. I wanted to be in the action. But I submitted 300 applications in the span of 2 months and I got 0 replies. So I had to change my strategy. And once I saw this data, I made that shift. I moved away from a heavy investment in online apps and moved towards a heavy investment in networking. And what I did was build out a networking system using a tracker I'm going to show you here in a second that eventually got me in the door via referral to places like Google, Twitter, and Microsoft, where I was eventually promoted multiple times. I won Microsoft's Platinum Club Award for the highest sales attainers. And then that created the launchpad for my business, Cultivated Culture. So the way that I did this was using a specific system. I didn't just rely on my brain or a piece of paper or notes in my phone to track all of these relationships. I actually had a Google Sheet, which I used as a CRM. I kept any contact that I wanted to reach out to or that I was developing a relationship with in here. And I had their name, I had their email, I had their job title, their company. But more importantly than that, I had things like the date of last contact, so I could see who I was due to reach out to. I had their status. Were they active? Were they warm? Were they cold? Did I need to re-engage them? I had a summary of our last conversation so I wouldn't forget little details like maybe the name of their children or their dog, or a place that they were going on vacation, or a challenge that they were struggling with. And then I had next steps, so I knew what actions I should take to further that relationship, as well as a follow-up date. So as we build out this whole networking automation in the rest of this video, what we're gonna do is use this sheet, which is based on the success that I saw in my job search and the system that we actively use with our clients that heavily focuses on networking to generate really awesome results in today's market. And so by the end of this, once we built this all out, you're gonna be able to tap into the maximum value of this sheet with minimal input because you're not going to have to update it manually. That's exactly what the automation that I'm going to show you is going to do. So with that said, let me build this whole thing out for you, walk you through it step by step so you can build it for yourself and reap all of the benefits. So when you're setting up any n8n automation, there's really 3 ways to get started, but there's only one that I recommend. So the first way to get started is to just open up a workflow here and begin building out your workflow. You can add a trigger, then you can go ahead and add more nodes and you can continue to build this out. But this isn't very helpful because if you're not technical, if you haven't used n8n that much, you are probably going to need a little bit of extra help. And I'm going to show you how to get that in the 3rd step here. So we can scrap that for now. The second way you can get started is with a pre-existing template. So for example, I'll share the template of this whole workflow at the end of the video. And if you get that from me, or if you get a template from somebody else, you can click the 3 little dots here, click import from file, and you can actually import an n8n workflow. But I don't typically recommend this either because 1, you have to have the template ready-made, but then 2, these workflows are going to be really personalized to your specific situation, your goals, the way that you like to handle things. And so you're probably going to have to tweak this quite a bit anyways. And then I also find that when you don't build out the workflow yourself, it's kind of hard to understand how everything fits in context. And it could be difficult for you to wire up everything correctly without investing the same amount of time that it would have taken you to build from scratch. So I also don't necessarily recommend doing that either, although I will share the template with you if that feels like the best option. The path that I do recommend taking, the resource I do recommend using is ChatGPT, and there's a couple of reasons for this. So first, ChatGPT has a lot of information on n8n and on all of the things that it's connected to, all the tools and platforms. It has access to their documentation, their knowledge bases. So this is a really easy way to tap into all those things in one single resource. I also like it because you can share what you're trying to achieve in plain language like I did with this prompt right here, and ChatGPT can tell you exactly how it would build it out. So you can see I shared a prompt for how to build out this networking automation tracker, and it gave me a one-time setup. Here's what I need to do to get started, build that Google Sheet. Then it talked me through the first step and the second step. And if there was any code that I needed to implement, it's going to share that and I can just copy the code. So this is really nice because it gives me the step-by-step breakdown. But the number one reason that I really like using ChatGPT is because it allows us to check our work as we go. And that's always something that I recommend doing. As you build out each step in the workflow, when you finish a step, you should always share the input, the screenshot or context of the step that's being taken, and then the output with ChatGPT so that 1, it can check your work, but 2, it can build context as you build out the workflow, and it's going to become smarter and it's going to have more context as you get deeper into the workflow build. So I'll give you some examples of that as we build this out. But my number one recommendation for any n8n workflow you want to build is to plug it into ChatGPT first, ask it for the step-by-step breakdown, and then keep this thread open as you begin to build the workflow. So let's do that right now. All right, so now we're going to build this thing out. And the first step is to get everything that you need for this automation ready. So I have my n8n workflow set up here. I also have this networking tracker, and I want you to pay attention to the second row here where I have the contact, aka me in this case, that we're going to see automatically update once we build this out. So right now you can see date of last contact, September 30th. Not much information here, and then no follow-up date. So we'll keep an eye on this. What I'm going to do to get us started is actually send myself an email from that support email address. So we have that message to use. And then we're going to start to build this out. So the easiest way to go is just step by step with what we have in ChatGPT. You can see I updated my prompt, my output to better align with how I would personally like to build this out. But the first step is to set up that scheduling trigger. So we're going to click this button and we're going to click the on a schedule trigger. In this case, I'm going to set it up for every 12 hours. But again, you can set this up however you would like. If you want it to run every minute, you can. If you want it to run every week, that works too. But now we have our schedule set up. Then the next thing that we're going to do is pull in the networking data from that Google Sheet. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a Google Sheet node, and I am going to choose the Get Rows and Sheets option. you're going to have to link up your own Gmail credential here. I also like to name each of these nodes as I build them out. The reason for that is it just helps me understand where everything is. And this is a pretty simple automation. If you make a more complex one, it's just really helpful to know what node is doing what. So what we're going to do is search for and find the tracker that we're looking for. So in this case, it's going to be Austin's networking tracker. You can click this little link just to verify that it is in fact the page that you're looking for. So we'll do that, and then we'll go ahead and select the right sheet. And now if I execute this step, we're going to see the input data on the left and the output data on the right. I cannot emphasize how important it is to stop and check to make sure that each step works after you build it. So the way that we're going to do that is by copying the input by clicking this button, coming back to ChatGPT and saying, I finished step 2. Here is the input. We're going to go ahead and paste that. Then we'll say setup attached. The other thing that I really like doing is leveraging screenshots. Frankly, you could screenshot this entire page and just do that instead of pasting the inputs and outputs. But I do think that having the actual content and giving it the full input and output gets you better results. So finally, we're going to copy the output. Keep messing that up. We're going to click here, and we're going to paste that in, and we're going to run it. ChatGPT is now going to double check all of our work and make sure that the output is what we're looking for, and the setup is converting the input into the output that we're looking for. Awesome. So ChatGPT said our Sheets read is working well. It's giving us exactly what we need. It does have a couple recommendations. I'm going to ignore those for now. And we are going to go into our next step here. That is going to be to search our email for any messages coming from emails that we have in our networking tracker. So I'm going to select this Google node. I'm going to select get many messages. And then we want to add a couple of filters here. So the first one is the sender filter. This allows us to pull in the email addresses from our networking sheet, the previous step, to make sure that we're ignoring everything else and only focusing on those. And then because we're running this, in this case, every 12 hours, we can use the received after filter just to limit the amount of data as well so it doesn't get too crazy. And this is really helpful because we know we're running it every 12 hours, so we only need to look back every 12 hours. If you want to set that up, you can use what's called an expression here. It looks something like this. This isn't exactly the last 12 hours, but what you could do is go to ChatGPT and say, hey, please write me a cron expression that I can copy and paste to make sure that my Gmail node is only looking at messages from the last 12 hours. And then we'll say, look up contact emails, and then we will execute the step. Now, what we'll see is that email that I sent to myself a couple of minutes ago, that should populate here. We should see all that output data here on the right once this is done running, and that will set us up for success moving forward. So here it is. We got everything that we need. And now the next step is to set up that code node. So code nodes, the reason I want to bring this up is because you may be thinking, I'm not technical. I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do any of this. And that is okay. This is where ChatGPT comes into play. So what we can do is copy the input. All right, so we're going to paste this in, and now ChatGPT is actually going to write this code for us. All we're going to have to do is copy and paste it into the node, and we are going to be good to go. So watch this. Boom. See, this is all the code that we need. We're just going to click the copy button right here. We are going to name this format for OpenAI. We are going to paste that code in, and we're going to execute the step. And what you're going to see on the right-hand side is exactly what we need to push right into ChatGPT. Awesome. And now we have the output that we need to send everything to OpenAI and generate, the summary, the action items, and the follow-up date. So let's do that. We are going to search for an OpenAI node here. We're going to set that up and hit message a model. At the very top, you can choose whatever model you want. I'm just going to use 4.0 in this case. And then we're going to want to add 2 prompts here. So the first is what's called a system prompt. And this is essentially just a general prompt to tell ChatGPT what sort of role to take on. So in this case, I'm telling it to be an expert networking coach, to use my own strategies, and to share concise, specific, and actionable advice. Then right below that, we're going to actually add in the prompt that is going to allow us to pull in all of the data from our email and use it to generate a summary of the conversation, to generate some next steps, and to generate a follow-up date. So this is a fairly long prompt. I will paste it in here, but what you'll be able to see is one, we want all these variables to be green. That means that it's correctly pulling in from the previous node. And then you can see I gave it some context up here around what information is coming in. Next, I told it to produce that summary, the next steps, and a follow-up date that's proportional to the ask and the conversation. And then I just gave it some rules. Now, these rules can be personalized to exactly what you're looking for and can really help you get a better output. These are likely going to be added on if you went back to your ChatGPT thread and said, hey, I'm ready for the OpenAI setup. Can you build me a prompt that is going to create this summary, that's going to generate next steps, and is going to generate a follow-up date? It's going to give you a prompt that's pretty similar to this one. And because you've been building out the automation in that same thread, it's going to know all these variables. So those should map correctly the first time as well. So what we're going to do is go ahead and execute this step. And what we're going to see on the output side of things is everything that we're looking for. So now we're ready to format this to push all the data back to our Google Sheet. So I'm just going to quickly rename this and say generate. Put that here. Perfect. And then now what we're going to do is add another code node to format this. Now I'll spare you going to ChatGPT and asking it for the code and all of that. Hopefully you know how to do that from what I showed you before. So I'm just going to copy and paste this code in here. We'll also call this format for Google Sheet. And you can see that we have a bunch of great information here, all of which is what we're looking to send. So, and that brings us to our final step, which is pushing this to the Google Sheet. So in order to do that, we'll open up a new Google Sheet node. In this case, we're going to select Update Row in Sheet. I'm going to go ahead and search for my networking tracker. I am going to pick the contact tracker setup here. And then mapping column mode should be manual. And the column to match on this is important. So this tells it what row to update. So this is how we align it to the right contact. In this case, don't choose 0. This came through as null for some reason. And I could work with ChatGPT to fix that. But instead, I know that OpenAI is outputting the row number that's associated with the correct contact here. And because we know the row number is associated with the contact, we don't need the name and email and job title and company and any of that stuff. Instead, what we can do is just drop everything from here in. We just have to mix and match. So the summary is going to go to the summary. The next steps is going to go to next steps. The follow-up date is going to go here. The date of last contact is going to go here, and then the status update is going to go here. So now we basically have everything ready to go. And so I'm going to say push to Google Sheet. And so right now what we can see is we have this really nice automation. We can go back to the sheet and we can see for me, the date of last contact was September 30th. We had a great conversation. We're not sure the next steps, and we don't have a follow-up date. Now, if I go and I run this flow, it's going to pull in all of my networking contact information. It's then going to look at my email for emails coming from people who are on my networking list sent in the last 12 hours. Then it's going to format everything and send it to OpenAI. OpenAI is going to generate the summary, the next steps. It's going to generate the follow-up date, and then it's going to push everything to the Google Sheet. Now, if we go back to the Google Sheet, we can see that everything has been updated. So the date of last contact was today, October 30th. The summary of last conversation is all in here. The next steps are in here, and the follow-up date is in here as well. And so if I come back and I save this and set it to active, now what's going to end up happening is every 12 hours, this automation is going to run. It's going to look at my email. It's going to find emails from my networking contacts, and it's going to update everything in this tracker. This is one of the coolest things that you can create for your job search because it completely removes all of the work that you have to do to track these relationships. And instead, you can just focus on building the relationships, building new relationships, and converting those into referrals. Now, if this felt overwhelming or you just want to speed up the process here and not build this out step by step, that's totally fine, because I'm sharing the free copy and paste versions of everything that we talked about in this video. So the free copy of my networking tracking sheet so that you can leverage that right out of the box, the free copy of the n8n template that you can download and then upload into your own n8n workspace with the entire workflow built out. All you have to do is just wire up your credentials to Google Sheets and Gmail and stuff like that, and all of the copy and paste prompts that I used in this video so you don't have to build them out from scratch. So if you're interested, you can go to austinbelsack.com/network and you can get all of that 100% free. Now, the last thing I'll say is the goal of this video was to teach you how to use n8n with an applicable workflow, but I also hope that it opens your mind up to other automations that you can run. For example, you could actually set up an automation that looks at the follow-up date and then sends you an email that says, hey, you should follow up with so-and-so contact today. The other thing you could build out is an email draft generator that looks at the summary from your last convo, looks at the next steps, and actually generates a draft of an email that you could send to a contact. So these are all different workflows that you can build in n8n once you know how to use the platform and once you explore it a little bit more. So I think you're going to find that there are so many things that you can automate in your job search. If you want some more ideas, comment down below and tell me what you want to automate. Tell me what you want to learn, and I can create more videos on exactly that. But hopefully this offers a really, really nice introduction that will be immediately applicable to your job search and help you lean into the channel that is driving interviews and offers in today's market.